I'm doing an Instagram live and also going to be recording for a podcast I'm basically doing now. So I'm going to wait here for a minute. If anyone wants to fire off any questions, I'll answer questions in real time. So happy to interact with people on the live as we go. But obviously you can kind of see the topic about what it takes to turn pro. And I think a lot of people that know me personally are like, well, Marcus, you didn't turn pro. So how the hell do you know what it takes to turn pro? Fair question. I came really close, came one spot away from it. And I've worked with people who've turned pro, and I'm very close friends with tons of people who turn pro. I talk to people on a regular basis who are pros. And I've had a front row seat to the biggest shows in the world, both pro qualifiers and just pro shows in general. And I've been in the industry for 15 years. So despite the fact that I never turned pro, doesn't necessarily mean that I don't know what it takes to get there. And really, to be honest with you, I could have extended this title to like what it takes to be the best version of yourself as a bodybuilder, but that's not sexy enough. I don't think that that would draw nearly as many people to the live because it's just cliche, right? Like that's just a cliche way of looking at it. Turning pro is something that, everybody that gets into the sport kind of wants. For whatever reason, bodybuilding is the one and probably only sport where people have this notion that they can just start a sport at 25 years old and within like a year become a professional at it. It's such a crazy concept. Like coming from traditional sports, as a basketball player, I played basketball at a very high level, played at college. As a 5'11" white dude, that's a pretty big feat. But in basketball, like you start playing basketball when you're a little kid. You're an anomaly if you start playing basketball in high school and become a pro. In bodybuilding, people start like in their prime, in the middle of their prime, and think like, well, why haven't I turned pro yet? Well, the same reason that like 99.999% of people who start playing basketball when they're 5 years old don't turn pro. It's hard to do. It's an exclusive club to be in. And provided that you have like human genetics, you're going to have to do some things that are probably very uncomfortable. And you're going to have to do them very consistently and work your ass off for a really extended period of time. And most people just are not willing to do that. And I'm aware that like nowadays, there's ways to turn, you can turn pro in the master's classes. And that's how I almost turned pro, to be clear. And let's back up. Let's talk about my career for a minute, since there's only a few people logged on so far. Like I started competing when I started my first prep when I was like 23. I started training for bodybuilding purposes at 22. Technically that's considered early. And I competed for almost 14 years. And didn't get a pro card. I came close in the master's class, Masters USAs, took second place. But like, had I continued competing at like nationals or USAs or anything like that, I would have gotten smoked. My best look ever was probably good enough for maybe a top 10 spot at a show like nationals or USAs. That's how competitive it is. It's hard. I'm pretty fucking good at bodybuilding. And like, that would have been the best that I could have ever really achieved, no matter what I did. And that's with 14 years of, experience in it. And I would say my genetics were decent, not great, but certainly not bad. So to kind of dive a little bit into it now that some more people are kind of signing in, like if you want to turn pro, the first step is recognizing that you're signed up for at least a decade in this sport. Like, and you need to be able to acknowledge that right away. Like you need to be able to acknowledge that like when you very first start competing, that like if you're not willing to put at least a decade into this, it's not going to happen for you. It's just not. And maybe you're a genetic anomaly and you can get there faster, for sure. There's stories. Everyone's heard stories. People who I personally know. Derek Lunsford only had to compete for a few years before he turned pro. Derek Lunsford's one of the most genetically gifted human beings I've ever met. That is a complete one-off, unless you have genetics like that. And by the way, if you have genetics like that, you're probably not watching this, right? So let's just like assume that if you're watching this, you have human genetics like the rest of us. It's going to take you a good 10 years. And maybe today you're insanely motivated. You really want it. Like a pro card is like is the thing. It's really what you want to achieve. It's your biggest goal. And then maybe your aspirations are even higher than that. Maybe you want to win a pro show. Maybe you want to be an Olympia competitor or whatever. Maybe those are your aspirations. Day one, you have to recognize that if you have even decent if you have shit genetics, it's probably not going to happen no matter what you do. And that's okay. Like, the first thing you have to consider is like very, very few people actually pull this shit off and turn pro. Very few people. And it's really the best of the best that do. I know tons of people who are unbelievably gifted and work incredibly hard that never got there. And I'm not even talking about myself, right? So day one, you have to acknowledge this is going to be at least like a 10-year venture, probably longer to get there. That's just to get there. To go beyond that and start new goals and achieve those, it's probably going to take you even longer. In addition to that, there's no such thing as off season. Okay. I want that to sink in really deeply. There is no such thing as off season. It's not a thing. It doesn't exist. Off season is just basically the exact same thing as prep, only more calories, maybe a little less cardio. That's it. You're eating the same foods. You're dieting the way you do during prep, just with more food all the time forever. If you want to be a professional, like think about, do you think basketball players just don't play basketball in their off season? Like, let's say their season is like 4 or 5 months long. You think the rest of the year they're just not playing basketball, not working on their game, not training? No, they play basketball year round, constantly. A lot of the best guys are playing on like the Olympic team and stuff like that. Well, nutrition, the most important aspect of bodybuilding is your nutrition. So if off season, you just get to like take time off and eat whatever you want and gain a bunch of body fat because you're bulking and trying to grow, you're not going to get anywhere. Like, if you think you're going to turn pro under those circumstances, keep adding more years to what I was originally talking about, because it's just not going to happen. You're going to slow yourself down. So you're dieting year round if you really want to be a pro, unless you just are the most genetically gifted human on earth. Okay. And again, that doesn't mean you're in a calorie deficit year round. The difference, if you really want to delineate the difference between off season and prep, it's just the amount of calories that you're eating. And the difference isn't really shouldn't be that much if you're doing it right, to be honest with you. So research shows, and of course this is shown anecdotally, whether people want to acknowledge it or not, but maintenance calories and just slightly above, and I'm talking like a handful, couple hundred calories above maintenance for a vast majority of people, that's optimal for muscle growth. And under those circumstances, you're going to stay really lean in your off season. So if you're watching this, go look in the mirror real quick and ask yourself out loud in the mirror, am I staying pretty lean in my off seasons? Because if you're not doing it right. You're just not. Like, that's why I say there's no such thing as off season, because off season requires the exact same diligence you have during prep if you really want to get good, if you really want to make significant progress. To be honest with you, that's my biggest regret of my career. I truly believe, and I know this is really easy to say, and if you want to shit on me for it, by all means, I'm leaving the door open for you to do that. I really believe, had I taken my nutrition a lot more seriously earlier on in my career during my off seasons, I probably would have gone pro, and I probably could have gone pro at like like a nationals or a USA's or a North Americans, not just wait until I get old enough to compete against the old guys in the Masters shows. But I didn't, and it's my biggest regret by far. And I never had any guidance, and I'm not making excuses, dude. What I did was I made excuses and justified a bunch of stupid shit when I was young. My off seasons, I would chase the scale like a lot of guys do now. Unfortunately, a lot of coaches are helping people chase the scale by pushing more and more food. Well, I got news for you guys. More food does not equate to more muscle. That's not how it works. Yes, you need to be in a slight calorie surplus. So more food than you're eating when you're in a deficit during prep. Yes. But that doesn't mean that your off season should require, and definitely should not require, progressively more and more and more and more food. It does not equate to more and more and more muscle. What it equates to is more and more and more body fat. And the more body fat you have is directly correlated with more insulin resistance. And the more insulin resistance you have, the more insulin resistant you are, is a more accurate way to put that, the less muscle you're capable of building. So that's what it is. If your off season is just you eating whatever you want, because you're in a surplus and you're getting a significant amount of protein, obviously that's all that's necessary. No, it's not what's necessary. You're just getting fat and you're getting fatter and fatter. And as that scale keeps going up and you keep thinking, oh, I'm almost at my goal off season weight of 290, which was mine at one point, 300 actually. And I almost got there. You're just getting fat. That's all it is. You're just getting fat. You're actually not building muscle. You're just getting fat. And then when it comes time to diet back down for your next show, guess what? You're going to look exactly the same. And it's going to be harder than shit to get back to where you previously were. The goal is to get better every time. And if you want to get better every time, you're going to have to stay in good shape in the off season. And staying in shape in the off season requires dieting very similarly to the way you do during prep, just a little bit more calories. So if you're willing to do that for a decade straight, then I have no doubts you could probably turn pro. I think you could make it happen for the most part, unless your genetics are just really, really bad. And again, I don't mean that in a critical way. Like there's nothing you can do about your genetics. You're born with that. You're never going to get rid of that. There's no surgery to make your clavicles wider. There's no surgery to make your hips more narrow so that your waist looks smaller. Like that's not a thing. So if your genetics suck, I commend people with shitty genetics that really do everything by the book and really try to get better no matter what, by any means necessary, despite the fact that they know they're probably not going to turn pro or accomplish any of these big goals that most people have. So again, I don't want to sound critical of people with bad genetics, but my point is you can still do everything right and never make it. But again, unless you have alien genetics, and again, if you're hearing this right now, this does not apply to you. You do not have alien genetics. Otherwise, there'd be no reason for you to listen to me talk about turning pro on here. You probably already are. You're going to have to do everything in your power, get every advantage humanly possible. And I don't mean more and more drugs, by the way. Oftentimes people are taking so much gear that that's actually hindering them too, but I'll get to that. The fact of the matter is your nutrition has to be dialed in every part of the year, whether you're in prep or you're not, point blank. Like, and if you hear that and feel like that's a death sentence and that's not motivating, that's actually really discouraging to you, then you're not going to turn pro. That's just how it is. Feel free to try to prove me wrong. By the way, I tried to prove myself wrong retroactively. Like when I was younger, I was trying to prove the concept I'm saying right now wrong. And guess where it left me? Second place as my best showing at a weak pro qualifier. So like I said, I'm speaking from experience on the other end of that coin. So again, off season is no different than prep, just a little bit more calories. That's really what it comes down to. And keep in mind, like if you stay lean in the off season, not only are you going to optimally build muscle, build as much muscle as you're actually physically capable of, but imagine prep. It's not going to be that hard. That's what I'd say all the time, dude. I can't tell you how frequently I have to talk about how bodybuilding's not hard like you think it is. It's really, if you're doing it right, it's really not hard like you think it is. This whole concept of dieting year round sounds hard to some people because they've never done it and they're afraid to do it because they think it's going to suck and they're not going to have any enjoyment. That's not true either. It's easy to do. You just have to be in the habit of doing it. You have to have a little bit of discipline initially. And as long as you can maintain that discipline long enough to form a new habit, it's actually easy. I do it. I'm retired from bodybuilding and I follow my plan every single day. That's why I stay in pretty damn good shape all the time. And I'm on no PEDs. I have no coach. I have no accountability. I do it all myself and I'm never going to get on stage ever again. But I still follow my plan every day. Why? Is it because I'm super disciplined? No. It's because I'm in the habit of doing it and it's just what I know. The easiest thing for me to do is stick to my plan because it's just what I do. It's what I do. It's what I know. It's really simple. So again, if you think that's like a death sentence and it's super hard and you're never going to be able to maintain that, it's unsustainable and there's no balance, okay, then don't turn pro. Don't tell me you want to be a pro then. It's as simple as that. As far as training goes, if you're in bodybuilding, if you're a competitor, don't we love training? And if not, what are you doing in this sport, right? Like, I would have never been a basketball player if I didn't enjoy playing basketball. And guess what? Like if you become among the elite best basketball players in the world, you can make millions of dollars. 5'11" white guys like me can't. So I just was in the wrong sport. But again, that adds to my point. I loved basketball. I loved practice. I loved getting shots up. I loved working on ball handling. I loved working on all of the different aspects of the game that made me better at basketball. Not because I felt obligated to do it, but because I love basketball. So if you're in bodybuilding in any capacity, even if you're just going to go do your first show and get on stage as a bucket list thing, I would hope that you love training. Because if not, like you're just in the wrong place. I don't know what you're doing competing if you don't love training. So nothing about training should ever feel like, a burden or a death sentence, because if you're in bodybuilding in any capacity, I have to assume that you love training. So nutrition, now we've discussed training a little bit. And then then it comes down to a lot of like little stuff. Sleep. Like, are you getting sufficient sleep? Because if you're not, that's going to hinder your ability to optimally grow and optimally get lean and just optimize the entire process. Optimize even just your motivation to train. You know what I mean? Maybe you love training, but like it gets to be a situation where you can easily get burned out. Like anybody who's on the live right now, raise your hand or comment something if you love training. But there are some times when you get to the gym parking lot and then you just sit in your car for like 20, 30, 40 minutes. I did. I used to do it all the time. Now I basically fucking live in my gym. This is my my office basically. So I'm in here every day. Yeah, Kristen knows. We all know. And by the way, I know that you've all done this. I used to have all of this gym equipment you see behind me in my gym used to be in my house. Some people know that about me, some don't, but that was even harder. Like when you're sitting on your recliner watching Family Guy, and then it's like, okay, it's time to train, and then you just walk downstairs and you're in the gym. That's tough up here, dude. That was really tough. Being able to train at full capacity when you just don't really have the motivation to do it is a really difficult thing to do too, even if you do love training. And you have to be able to do it. Like you have to be able to just knock it out anyway. And I did that for a few years before I opened this place, but there was a time when I got burned out to the degree that I basically more or less kind of quit. Obsessed. I have to force myself to rest. Yes, that's another thing though too. I'm going to touch on that right after this. You know what? I'm not even going to tell my story. I'll tell that a different day because it's not really relevant. But glad you brought up the rest thing, because that's a component that most people miss too. And that's where loving training can actually loving training can never backfire, but like when you love training so much that you're unwilling to take days off or even sometimes an entire week off, that's going to backfire on you as well, to just as high of a degree as almost anything else. Because in order for workouts to actually be effective and elicit hypertrophy, which is 50% of the sport of bodybuilding, you got to recover from them. And if you're training all the time, if you're training 7 days a week, if you're doing 2-a-days, in most cases, even if you're training 6 days a week with 1 full day off, probably not recovering. And if you are, then that would tell me a lot about how hard you're actually training when you are training. And I would say that you're probably not training very hard if you're able to recover from 6 days of working out. And you either have to have the maximized recovery, or you have to you have to have the maximized recovery, but you also have to have the maximized intensity. So if you're recovering from 6 days a week of training, one, you're probably not. But if you are, it's because you're not training very hard in those workouts. And again, that's going to backfire on you too. So taking rest days for people who love training can be really difficult to do, but that's one of the sacrifices you have to make if you want to turn pro, which is, again, the title of this video is like how to turn pro. You have to be able to take the correct amount of time off for the style of training that you're doing. If you're training your fucking ass off and going to failure on all of your working sets, like true failure. By the way, a lot of the studies on this, like reps in reserve and training to failure and all that kind of stuff, a lot of those studies are slightly skewed, because what they've found is that a vast majority of people that are being used as contributors to the data or whatever, the actual people who are participating in the studies, they don't know what failure actually is. That's the problem. Like a lot of them think they're going to failure and they're still like 5 reps in reserve. They just thought it was failure because they think that like when it gets really difficult, that's failure. Thank you, Sam. Appreciate you, sir. So yeah, that's the big thing. You should be training to failure, especially earlier in your career when you're younger, because you can recover from that a lot better when you're younger. And training to failure ensures that you're getting enough of the stimulus to actually make the muscle grow. The biggest thing, though, is also psychological. If you're able to train to true failure, then you know what 1 rep in reserve is or 2 reps in reserve is. If you don't, if you've never trained to failure before, then you don't know what the hell 1 RIR or 2 RIR is because you've never experienced what 0 RIR is. You have to know what 0 reps in reserve is in order to know what 1 or 2 or 3 reps in reserve is. So if you ever hear any of these science-based guys saying you shouldn't go to failure, you need to keep like 1 or 2 RIR. Hello, Paula. Okay, cool. That makes sense. I understand that there's research that shows like 1 to 2 reps in reserve is just as effective as going to failure. But how do you know if you're 1 to 2 reps in reserve if you've never gone to failure before? If you don't know what failure actually means, you don't. You just don't. And again, the studies more or less show that 1 to 2 reps in reserve is as good as training to failure. So, like, maybe let's just train to failure. If you're using PEDs, by the way, and I'll get into this more, but like, if you want to turn pro, if you want to become an IFBB pro and you're going to try to do it naturally, good luck. Ain't going to happen. It's just not in almost any category. Maybe fit model. Bikini is possible. Highly unlikely, but possible. Not encouraging anybody. I'm not giving anybody any advice on it. To be honest with you, I think minimum effective dose, definitely. I'm very big at adhering to minimum effective dose. That's another thing. I may have been able to turn pro had I not adhered to that myself. Neither here nor there, but that's a big factor too. But to go back to the training component, if you're using PEDs and you're leaving reps in reserve, why? They're not doing studies on a bunch of enhanced people. They're not doing studies on elite bodybuilders. They're doing studies on mostly just pretty normal average people. And so again, like the normal average person who doesn't have those androgens in their system that are pushing muscle protein synthesis and recovery to a much higher degree, those studies don't necessarily apply exactly to you. So if you are using PEDs, you should be training to failure. I don't care what any of the research says. And I'm very big at actually adhering to research. People are too afraid of feeling pain to go actually to failure. It's totally true. It's again, dude, guys, listen, your brain is wired to prevent you from doing things that cause extreme discomfort. So if you're training as hard as you possibly can, your brain is telling you, stop, 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 stop. This hurts, this is hard, this hurts, this is going to hurt us, we're going to get injured, stop. And you have to say, no, I got to keep going until the muscle is no longer capable of moving that weight in the way that you're attempting to move it, provided that your execution is good. If your execution gets messed up as a result of training to failure, then you're doing that wrong. So again, there's a lot of specificity in here. But yeah, man, like that's really what it comes down to. And the fact of the matter is, like, I'm talking about this as a 24/7 thing, or at least a 365 days a year type situation. Like you're not going to turn pro if you just dial it in during prep and kill it during prep, but then your off season is like a vacation from prep. It's not what it is, man. Like people get like, I can already tell you people are going to have a bad off season when they're 3 weeks out from their show talking about, oh my God, I cannot wait to be able to eat after my show. When you're following a bunch of food porn pages and obsessing over what you're going to eat after the show and obsessing over the fact that you can't wait to not have those restrictions anymore and stuff like that, I already know you're going to have a shit off season and you're probably not going to achieve much. And yes, this applies to many, many clients I've worked with in the past. It's just like foreshadowing. Don't get me wrong, dude. Like I eat like a sociopath after my shows, like literally the night after my shows and maybe even a little bit the day after. But then it's right back to my plan. And again, I don't think of that as a death sentence. I used to when I was younger and immature and didn't have any guidance and thought that gaining as much weight as possible in the off season was the right thing for me. But I was wrong. I was just like wildly wrong. And that's why I like to provide, valuable information for people so that they can hopefully prevent themselves from going down that road, because it's one that you will definitely regret. Not even just from a bodybuilding perspective, but from a health perspective. Like the big thing is like when you've been in a deep calorie deficit over an extended period of time, AKA contest prep, you're a lot more susceptible after the fact, not only to grow fat cells, which is really what getting fat mostly consists of, but also adding new fat cells, which those grow as well. And now you have a much higher propensity to get even fatter later. And so you do not want to go down that road. You just do not want to go down that road. Eat like an asshole for a night, maybe even the next day. and then be done with it. Matt Jansen had a really good idea, and I think a lot of people are doing this and claiming it as their own. But what he would tell his athletes, like before finals or right after finals, is basically, if you want to go binge after the show, drink 2 liters of water before you do it. Before you eat anything, get 2 liters of water down. If you can get 2 liters of water down, then feel how you feel before you go eat, because it's going to make you feel a lot fuller than you actually are. You're probably pretty dehydrated on show day in most cases. You can get down 2 liters of water, then go do your binge, because it's probably going to limit the amount that you're going to be able to binge on by a tremendous amount, and you'd be thankful that you did. Let me see. I got some questions in here. Actually surprised and grateful that I'm not thinking about garbage food in this prep 5 weeks out. Like, I could care less about it. Yeah, that's where you want to be. That's the sweet spot. And I can tell you exactly why. One is because you're dedicated and you want to fucking win. That's why you're doing it. And 2, you were in good shape at the beginning of prep. That's what it comes down to. If you would have been 40 pounds heavier at the beginning of prep and we would have had to really, really suck you down to get you in shape, you'd probably be a lot more likely to be like, oh my God, I just want to binge. I just want ice cream. I just want cookies. But you're not. So, read something once that said, if you want to turn pro, you have to believe you already are one. Train like one, sleep like one, eat like one, and believe you already are one. Yes. And I hear people all the time say, they make this excuse, right? They talk about like current elite top pros that don't have real jobs, right? Like people who don't have a 9-to-5, that's entire job is just essentially bodybuilding, training and getting photo shoots done and having a camera following you around everywhere and getting paid by supplement companies to endorse their products and all this kind of stuff. And people will say stuff like, well, I could do it if that was all I had to worry about. Okay. So frankly, and I'm telling you this 100% from the bottom of my heart, if I was good enough to be that bodybuilder, like a top 5 in the world guy who was just literally getting paid to be a pro bodybuilder and just do photo shoots and interviews and guest appearances and then make a shitload of money on prize money at all the shows, I would still have a job, even if I didn't need one, because it would be fucking boring. Frankly, if all I had to do was train and eat, you can do all of that stuff and have a job and manage all of it just fine and have kids and a family and the whole nine. I see people do it all the time. I have clients that I once had a client. It was a single mom. Kids had a deadbeat dad that was really not present in their lives whatsoever. She had 4 kids, not 1, not 2, 4 kids, young kids. And she was a nurse at a maximum security prison, was her full-time job. And then on the side, she was also a waitress to be able to make ends meet and pay for the lives of 4 different kids and give them a beyond poverty stricken life, which I have the utmost respect for in and of itself. I haven't even gotten into the bodybuilding thing, but she had me doing her contest prep. This was a long time ago. This was like 12 plus years ago, but she had me as her contest prep coach, and her now husband, actually at the time, it was just her trainer, like a one-on-one in-person trainer. And she trained with him multiple times a week. He was charging very little. Again, they ended up dating and now they're married or whatever. I think they actually have a kid of their own too at this point. But anyway, trained with him, followed my diet every single day. Never complained. I never heard her make a single complaint about anything. And won. I mean, she did 2 shows with me. I think she maybe took second at her first, and it was her first show ever. And then her second and third shows were both first place finishes. One of them should have been an overall. I remember distinctly now. She didn't win the overall, but she for sure should have. But it is what it is. It was a long time ago. But either way, my point is, if she can do that, you can have a full-time job and do everything that's necessary to become a pro yourself. Does that mean that you're definitely going to get there? No. That's my whole point. It's the whole purpose for this video, is to kind of put out there like how hard and actually unlikely it really is to turn pro. You can do everything perfectly, like I'm talking about, which is totally necessary if you really want to get there. And you still might not get there. And you fucking, frankly, may not even get close. So if you really want to be a pro, you need to check all these boxes every single day. Not every single day, but throughout an entire year, every year for like a decade, if you really want to get there. And even under those circumstances, you still may not. And that's okay. That's what makes bodybuilding fun and exciting. If everyone could just train for a year or two and show up and turn pro, why would you even want to do it? That would be stupid. Like, I don't resent basketball for not allowing me to become a professional at it. And I put my every day of my life from the time I was in a crib, literally. I have pictures of my little cardboard Larry Bird basketball hoop that was literally in my crib, and I was obsessed. It's all I ever did was play basketball from the time I literally was sleeping in a crib all the way until I was 22 years old and got finished playing college basketball. You know how close I got to turning pro in basketball? Not even remotely close to being on anybody's radar. And I'm not talking about the NBA. There's pro leagues all over the world. None of them had any interest in me. And that's with me killing it every single day of my life from the time I was a little kid all the way through college. So do I resent basketball for that? Fuck no, dude. I loved every moment of all that. All that work that I did was fucking amazing. It was the best time of my life. I've talked on multiple occasions in private conversations. I've never really talked about it publicly on social media or anything, but in a group chat with a couple of my buddies, we were talking about like nostalgic moments that we'll never be able to relive that were the best moments of our life. And, you know, guys were talking about like big, like vacations and stuff, like big moments, you know, big achievements and whatever it was. I don't remember specifically what it was for everybody in the group chat, but mine. So there was a basketball, or there's just a high school, I should say. Let me back up. There was a high school about 20 minutes from my house, and they had renovated and put a whole new gym in their school. And then they still maintained their old gym that had been there since like probably the 60s or 70s at that point. It was just really old, very outdated and whatever. And it was like off campus. You had to like walk from the school across way down the parking lot to get to the old gym. And I think that's just where they kind of did PE classes and stuff for the most part. But anyway, the old gym, like I said, was kind of a standalone building, and the door, it was just old and it was kind of broken. So there was they would lock it, but if you just yanked on it hard enough, it would open. And I don't even remember how I figured that out. But anyway, after hours, like I'd get home from school or whatever, and after hours, I would drive down to the gym. It was Francis Howell High School. Someone's pulling up here. Fuck. God damn it. They're pulling up at the worst possible time. Anyway, hold on a minute. Let me do something. 1 second. 1 second. Stay there. Stay back. Wish I could edit this all out. I'm glad you guys all stayed. Thank you. Anyway, I would stop barking, please. You're ruining it. Anyway, I would break into the gym. I'd go at like 7 p.m. after all like the faculty and staff were gone, the janitors were gone, stuff like that. Bring my basketball shoes, all that kind of stuff. And I'd break into their gym. Most of the lights were off, but it was wide open because the whole place was mine. Like I would stay there as long as I possibly could. This was back when we had like Nokia cell phones and stuff. No smartphones existed at this point. This was like 2003 through 2005. And I would just be in there as long as I possibly could. Every now and then I'd go check my phone. I'd have missed calls from my parents like, you need to get your ass home. It didn't matter, dude. It was the best time of my life. By myself in a basketball gym, working on my game. And in my head, I wasn't thinking I'm working on my game. In my head, I was just like, I'm doing the thing that I love the most in the entire world right now. Nothing could make me stop doing this. I don't remember where I was really going with this. Like, I guess the point is like, I loved the work more than anything else. It wasn't about getting to a certain level or winning something or becoming a professional or getting drafted or anything like that. I knew by that point that wasn't in the cards for me. I'm 5'11" and white. Go look up, go to ChatGPT and say, how many 5'11" white guys are in the current NBA? I can shortcut this for you. There's zero. There's actually zero 5'11" white guys in the NBA, or 5'11" guys in the NBA of any race. Probably the shortest white dude in the NBA right now is probably 6'3", 6'4". And they're in there because they play really good defense and they shoot the ball, and none of them are starters. So anyway, that was my reality. I loved the sport so much that all I wanted to do was that. And I would do it under any circumstances necessary, and still didn't get nearly as far as I would have loved to have gone. And people need to have that same mindset about bodybuilding. If you really want to be a bodybuilder, you want to be a pro, you better fucking love the sport. Otherwise, you're not going to do what's necessary to get there. And again, even if you do what's necessary to get there, you've probably, the odds are you still probably won't. And that's not the point. Like, do I have regrets about my bodybuilding career? Yes. That's why I'm doing these videos, is to try to help people not have regrets. Like, help people not do the things that I did that I do regret. Um, but other than that, I don't regret, the training. I don't regret the discipline that went into the diet or the cardio or anything like that. It was awesome. And it's all stuff that you can take with you the rest of your life as well. But again, if your goal is to turn pro, whether you ever get there or not, you have to do what's necessary to get there. And very few people are willing to do that. Or even if they are, a lot of them are just misled into believing that a lot of really stupid shit is how you get there. So let's talk about drugs for a minute. Drugs are not how you get there. And there's a lot of big bodybuilding teams these days that are willing to just treat their clients like cattle, load them up with drugs, and hope that the drugs get them far enough to make the coach look good so that they can keep getting more and more of them. So they can load them up with drugs and then be like, I got 14 pro cards this year. And it's like, yeah, all those clients are going to die. Not literally. I'm exaggerating there, but in a lot of cases, if it's female clients, a lot of them, they are going to lose their femininity. They may become infertile. They may lose things that they otherwise would have wanted for the rest of their life after bodybuilding, so that you could say, I got my client a pro card, loaded him up with as many drugs as I could to get him there so that I can look good and say that I got that pro card. I'm not willing to do that. I've never been willing to do that. I never will be willing to do that. If you're going to work with me and we're going to turn pro, we're going to do it because you're willing to follow the plan all year round. You're willing to work really fucking hard. You're willing to do what's necessary to be able to get 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night, and you're willing to follow your plan all year, not just during prep and then fuck off during off season. I'm telling you right now, fuck off during off season. You're not turning pro. It's never going to happen. It won't. It just won't. Again, unless you're just this genetic 0.1%. And if that's the case, you're probably not watching this video. So let's see, walking the cul-de-sac, getting steps and listening to your live. Love that. Yeah. So again, like you're doing something that's contributing to you doing the best you possibly can and potentially getting your pro card. And I really think that's a strong possibility for you this year. Really excited about that opportunity as well. So, and again, Kristen has shown that in the short sample size we have since we started, that you're willing to follow the plan during your off season. And for that reason, you're going to keep getting better and better. Question, thoughts on HRT? I think if you need it, it's fantastic. So I think that bodybuilders have really kind of given TRT or HRT a little bit of a taboo stigma because they think of TRT as just your bridge between cycles, and you got like 21-year-old kids doing a cycle of stuff, and then they're bridging with TRT in between so that they don't lose their gains before they go back on another cycle. And the next thing you know, they're 23 and they have completely shut down their natural testosterone production. I think that's really stupid. By the way, guys, I was competing in the 230s, shredded with like actual national level, like elite conditioning at 230. And I never up until like my last 2 years at like 35, just did TRT between cycles. I didn't need it. I came off my cycles entirely, got blood work done, tested to see where my actual natural testosterone was, in addition to all the other, metrics, ALT, AST, GFR in unison with creatinine, BUN, all that kind of stuff, of course. And if my testosterone was in the normal ranges without being on TRT, then I was off TRT and I was on nothing. That's what you should do until you get to a point where you're no longer producing testosterone all the way, which it eventually happened to me. And that's a reality. Like if you're a dude that's using PEDs consistently and cycling on and off, there will come a time, probably somewhat prematurely, where you're not going to keep making testosterone the way you did when you were younger. Which, by the way, is going to happen to every dude, no matter what, at some point. Usually, 5, 10, 15 years later than you would if you didn't use PEDs. But yeah, so if you have low testosterone production naturally, then I think HRT or TRT, however you want to word it, hormone replacement or testosterone replacement, I think it's fantastic. I think it's really good. There's tons of new research on it too that just shows that there's no like negative impact on your health if you do it. I shouldn't say no, because in some cases it could, just depending on the person. But again, if you're getting it from a doctor, they're going to make sure that you're getting regular blood work so that they can keep track of whether or not it's having a negative impact on you. So, yeah, I think Hormone replacement is a wonderful thing. I'm glad it's becoming more popularized. I do think that bodybuilding sometimes gives it a negative stigma because people are abusing it. And not only that, by the way, like you've also got like guys in their 20s that are running TRT only and their dose is like 500 milligrams a week. That's not TRT. Even 250 a week, by the way, and again, this is all researched. 250 a week is going to give you super physiological results. It's not you're not going to turn into fucking Nick Walker on 250 a week, but you will get more results in the gym than you would naturally, fairly noticeably, if you're using 250 milligrams a week, even if you're not producing testosterone. So my TRT, and again, this is like a medically necessary situation. I don't produce hardly any testosterone on my own anymore. And my TRT is 200 milligrams a week. Based on my blood test results, like that has me in super physiological ranges, on the low end of what would be considered super physiological. But like my test's somewhere around like 11, 12, 1300, just kind of varies depending on, you know, the circumstances when I get the blood drawn. Either way, that's super physiological. Like that's above, you know, normal ranges, not by a lot, you know, but if you're using like heavy cycles, you know, you can have testosterone that doesn't even register on the charts, 4, 5, 6,000 or whatever. But yeah, and that is a legitimate health concern if that's the case. But again, that's bodybuilding. That's a part of bodybuilding. Again, I'm not recommending it. I'm not saying you should do it. This is not advice, but either way. But I did want to talk about the drug thing a little bit because again, if you want to turn pro in any category other than like fit model in the NPC, or, you know, to transition into the IFBB, it's kind of a part of it. And rather than me sitting here and telling you, you need to take drugs, you need to take a lot of it, I'm not going to do that because I'm not going to be that guy. I think that minimum effective dose should still be what you adhere to, but minimum effective dose vary. It just depends on the person. If you're just trying to be big for the sake of being big, minimum effective dose is something very low. Like I said, 250 a week of just testosterone will give you super physiological results. So I think that's minimum effective dose or something like that. If you're just doing your first show, you know, if you're doing shows just because you want to stay in shape and you like the sport a little bit, we're still talking pretty low doses. That's what minimum effective dose means. If you want to turn pro, that's a little bit different. And if you are a pro and you want to like win a pro show or get to the Olympia or whatever, that's a little bit different thing too. You're probably going to have to take quite a bit of stuff. But you also should be educated on what you're taking, how much of it, what kind of impact it might have. You should be getting blood work done so that you know at least partially. It's a partial component getting blood work done, by the way. Doing like chest x-rays, EKG, blood pressure, something you should pay attention to pretty frequently. All of those things in unison will tell you whether or not you're remaining healthy under these circumstances. And if you're not, it's not worth it. It's not. And let me also be clear about turning pro. And I don't want to sound like negative or whatever. Like, what do you guys think happens when you turn pro? Like, if you turn pro like if you get drafted into the NBA draft, I can tell you what happens. You're on TV, hugging your parents, crying, walking up on a stage with the commissioner of the NBA who's handing you your team's hat. And then you're doing interviews and you're getting millions of dollars, sometimes in endorsements. And then you're going to sign your rookie contract, which is over $1 million a year. And if you perform and do fairly well, you get signed to like your first real contract and you start making tons of fucking money, millions and millions of dollars. If you're elite, your first real non-rookie contract might be $40-50 million a year. You know what it is in bodybuilding if you turn pro? It's a bill for $300 for a business card that says IFBB Pro on it. That's a pro card. That's what you get. You get to stand on a stage and hold up a big red sign that says IFBB Pro on it. That's cool. That's it. That's what you get. You get a picture with a red cardboard sign, says IFBB Pro on it. And then you get to pay $300 for them to send you a little business card that says your name and IFBB Pro on it. And then you get to compete in pro shows where now you're probably not likely to win any money because you're probably not going to win them because now you're like the bottom of a barrel as a pro. So that's what getting a pro card is. So I'm not saying don't try to shoot for it. Do shoot for it, but only shoot for it if you genuinely love this shit. Because if you push yourself through this whole thing and force yourself to do it because you think there's something like unique and exciting about a pro card, I'm sorry, but you're going to be wildly disappointed. You're going to get your bill in the mail to pay your $300 or so for your little card, and you're going to get your picture with that sign. But if your picture with that sign is not enough for you to want it, then don't do it. It's a waste of time. It's a bad idea. I think a lot of people compete for all the wrong reasons. I think a lot of people want a pro card because they want attention for it. They want people to be like, oh, you're a pro? Why? You know how many people think I'm a pro? There's so many people who think I'm a pro, even though I've never indicated whatsoever. It's not like in my IG name or anything. A lot of people think I'm a professional bodybuilder, and I'm not. And guess what? People don't treat me any different. No. Again, like some of my best friends are pros, and they walk around in public and nobody knows anything about them. No one cares. You know what your friends are going to do when you get your pro card? They're going to send you a text. It's like, they're going to be watching TV, whatever it is. They're watching, what's a popular show right now? They're watching Wednesday Addams. They're watching Wednesday on the couch when they pause to scroll. They probably don't even pause. They just let it play. And then they're scrolling Instagram and they say, oh shit, Johnny turned pro. Text. Congrats, bro. That's awesome. And then they're watching Wednesday again. That's what you get for a pro card. I'm just saying. That's all it is. So again, if you don't, and that's not to say don't shoot for it. I'm just saying that it's a thankless job. Nobody gives a fuck if you turn pro. You need to be the only one that gives a fuck whether or not you turn pro. And you need to love every minute of the journey to get there, because that is the only memories you're really going to have. And that's the only thing that's actually rewarding about it. It's the most rewarding thing about it, is accomplishing something that was very difficult. And the difficult stuff that you did to get there is the stuff that you're going to look back and remember and say, holy shit, man, I loved that. I loved every moment of that. You're not going to look back and be like, man, that when I was on the stage and I held up that sign and they took my picture, best moment ever. If that's a good moment for you, it's literally because of all that other shit that you had to go through to get there. And the shit that you had to go through to get there is really going to be what was the most rewarding and the reason why you enjoyed it and why you find it, to be one of the fondest memories ever. Just like for me, like I won so many basketball games in my life. I was known for being clutch and hitting game winners. And, I went really far. Like I said, I played in college and all this shit, right? The moment that I look back on, the moments that I look back on and cherish by far, and it's nothing even comes remotely close, is those moments when I broke into the old gym and I was by myself for hours just working on my game. None of the other stuff. The other stuff was cool, don't get me wrong. Like hitting game winners in front of big crowds and shit was fucking awesome. Don't get me wrong. It's amazing. But those moments by myself in the gym, training, running line drills that no one told me I had to run, and doing jump training and shooting 1,000 shots and working on defensive slide drills, which sucked. That's what I look back and miss. That's what I wish I could go back and replicate. And I never will. And it sucks. Like that's like the hardest thing for me, is not ever having that opportunity again. By the way, that school tore that gym down. It's not there anymore. But that's how it is with everything, including bodybuilding. And so if you're shooting for a pro card, I hope you love this shit, because you're going to have to go through a lot of really hard stuff, and you better love that hard stuff or you're never going to get there. And even if you do, the most important thing to you is going to be all that hard stuff that you put yourself through willingly because you loved it. Let's see. I've always thought that if it ever happened to me, I get to show my son, no matter how much time it takes, never give up on what you love. Yes. Fuck yes. I have two clients. I have a lot of clients that this actually probably applies to, but I have two right now. It's a husband and a wife. They have I think two young kids, and they're not even bodybuilders. I think he's going to compete, so he will do his first show. She's not even trying to. They've both been fairly overweight most of their lives, and they're just working with me as lifestyle clients at the moment. And again, he is going to compete eventually. But what I'm getting at is, she mentioned recently in a check-in something about, I don't remember exactly what the circumstances were, but something about her kids and how they like wanted to eat whatever, chicken breast and bell peppers or whatever they were eating, something that's part of their plan, right? And I had mentioned to her, I was like, this is the most important thing about all this by far. Like, you losing weight is fucking awesome, right? Like, that's what you signed up for. You signed up for me to help you lose weight and to get in the best shape of your life and feel confident again and look in the mirror and really love what you see and have candid pictures of yourself that you can look at and be proud of, as opposed to embarrassed about and things like that. Like, that stuff's all huge. But something way, way fucking bigger than that is the habits that you establish along the way that your kids pick up on. If you've got kids and you're doing bodybuilding or just fitness in some capacity, Your kids are absorbing all of that. Like, we tend to forget that when you're a kid, all you know is what's right in front of you because you haven't lived long enough to have a lot of experiences in other circumstances. Like, little kids, whatever their parents' house is, they assume that every other kid is growing up in that exact same house or something very similar to it, right? Or whatever their best friends' houses are. And typically their houses are similar because you probably live in similar neighborhoods because of proximity and things like that. Kids only understand what's directly in front of them. So if what's directly in front of them is you paying attention to what you're putting in your body so that you can look better and feel better and live longer and have more energy and be able to show up for your kids, they're learning amazing habits. And they think that that's what everyone else is doing. And they're going to see other friends. They're going to go to their friends' houses where their parents just sit on their ass and eat Cheetos and watch TV all day. And they're thinking, ew, that sucks. My parents are way more energetic. They're outside throwing the baseball with me or whatever because they're maintaining their health and feel good and have energy. And again, it's the same thing with bodybuilding. It's all kind of the same stuff. Bodybuilding's just like the accelerated version of general weight loss or fitness in general, right? Like, it's not really having a whole lot of days off from following the diet really diligently, as opposed to general weight loss, where maybe, a special occasion, you're at a wedding, you just eat some fucking cake and eat the bullshit catered food or whatever. It's no big deal because you get right back on your plan. As a bodybuilder, you're bringing a fucking Tupperware to the wedding, right? That's the big difference, right? And either way, like, your kids seeing you show up and get out of your comfort zone and do things that are hard and find enjoyment in doing them will make your kids the same way. The reason we have an obesity epidemic in this country, or really it's more global now, every first world country's fat now. The reason we have that is not because we don't have the resources. It's not because healthy food's more expensive. That's bullshit. That's complete fucking bullshit. What it is everybody's in really bad habits and their kids are growing up exposed to really bad habits and they don't know any differently. They grow up and they do what you did because that's what they know. And if you ate like an asshole and were lazy and didn't work out and justified it and made excuses for all of it, and this applies to bodybuilders too, if you're in your off season justifying eating like an asshole every day and not training and not getting your steps in, not moving enough, and you have kids, they're seeing all that and they think that's what's normal and they think that's how you're supposed to live. And they're going to live their life that way too. Obesity is not hereditary. It's passed down through habits that you have 100% control over. So how about we start establishing positive habits, both as general lifestyle people who want to be in better shape and as bodybuilders who want to turn pro? It requires the same things. All it requires is positive habits. That's it. Once you've established those habits, it's really easy. Like, all these fucking tough guy bodybuilders with big muscles that post their videos to their hardcore music and post captions talking about how much of a tough guy they are and how you could never live a day in their life. That just goes to show that those are just insecure, giant fucking pussies. The guys posting that, posturing as tough guys because they're bodybuilders, are the biggest pussies on planet Earth. And I'm sure a lot of you are probably following people because you think that they're being motivating and whatever. They're pussies. Whittle all that muscle back off of them, and it's just going to be a meek little pussy. And that's why they're posting like that, to make themselves feel tough. Because at the end of the day, bodybuilding's not hard. Not hard. It's only hard if you don't like it. If you don't like training, bodybuilding's hard. Then don't do bodybuilding if you don't like training. Real simple solution. If you hate bodybuilding so much that you think it's really hard, then why the fuck are you doing bodybuilding? If it's too hard for you to eat chicken instead of pizza, not a very good bodybuilder, not a very tough person. I'm sorry. But bodybuilding is not hard if you're doing it right. Do you have to train hard with intensity? Yes. But if you love bodybuilding, that's fun. That's not something to go brag about. By the way, I never once bragged about breaking into the gym at Francis Howell High School, the side small gym, and training my ass off every single night, every single opportunity I had. I never told anyone about that because I never needed recognition for it. It was literally the time of my life. It was the happiest moments that I have ever had in my entire life. Why would I go be like, I go to the gym every day after hours and I break in and risk getting arrested for basketball? If I said that, then that would just be an indication that that was really hard for me to do and I didn't really enjoy it very much and I forced myself to do it. Not the case at all. It's the same thing with bodybuilding. If you love training, why would you need to brag about how hard you're training? It's what you love to do. It's like recess. You think kids brag about, I went to recess today? No, but they might brag about getting an A on a science test because it was hard and they didn't want to do it and they had to, So that's really, how you need to look at this. Like the mindset, and I'm not like a motivation guy, like a tough guy, mindset guy. Your mindset really should be established before you ever start competing in the first place. Do you love bodybuilding? Are you passionate about bodybuilding? If yes, then you're probably at least mentally equipped to do what's necessary to try to take yourself to the highest level possible. If not, don't start. I would have never played basketball if I didn't love basketball. If I was 7 feet tall, I wouldn't have played basketball just because I was tall if I didn't love basketball. So anyway, that's why when I hear people talking about sacrificing for prep, I laugh. You either choose to live like this or you don't. Shouldn't be a sacrifice. It's a choice. It's a choice. You're exactly right. You're not sacrificing shit. You're choosing to do it. If you feel like you're sacrificing something, then just don't do it. You know how many people, first of all, I mentioned how much people don't give a fuck if you turn pro. The only person who cares if you turn pro is your coach, because then that's an opportunity to make them look good. Other than that, you're the only person who cares whether or not you turn pro, right? And no one cares to a much higher degree. Zero people give a fuck if you do bodybuilding, like if you go through prep. Nobody is relying on you to be a bodybuilder and to go through a contest prep. No one. So like if it's really hard for you and you don't like it and you feel like you're sacrificing a bunch of stuff to do it, then quit, because zero people are going to give a fuck if you quit. No one's even going to notice if you quit. I can't tell you how many times, dude, I have like a decent sized following. I don't have a giant following, but I have some following. And I've had preps where I was posting consistently progress pictures, shredded. And then people would randomly come across one. As a matter of fact, I would announce when my shows were. This is my favorite. I would announce when my shows were every week, 3 weeks out, 2 weeks out, blah, 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 posting all these pictures, posting the date of my show, posting where it was, all this different shit. And then the day of the show, I'd get texts from some of my closest friends like, hey, dude, do you want to come by? We're having a barbecue. And I'm like, I'm in California for my show. Oh shit, dude, I didn't even know you were doing a show. No one gives a fuck. No one cares about your bodybuilding. If it's hard and you don't want to do it and you feel like you have to sacrifice, then quit. Don't do it. Drop out. Don't complain about it, because you could quit at any time and no one fucking cares. And to be honest with you, the people closest to you would probably love for you to drop out of your shows. So if you feel like you're sacrificing, quit. Bodybuilding's not putting food on your table. There's like 5 people in the world that are putting food on the table with bodybuilding. You're not one of them. None of them are watching this. So if you're watching this, bodybuilding's not making you any money. Nobody is relying on you to do this. You don't need to do this. If it's hard, if it's too taxing for you, if you have to sacrifice so much, quit. Don't do it. Life's a lot easier without it, if it's that hard for you. If you love it and you don't feel like that's a burden, you're not going to brag about how hard it is. So that's that. Anyway, I could recap all this, and I probably should, because there's probably some people who were on the live that weren't in the beginning, but at the end of I'll recap real quick. The things that you need to do to be a pro is 1, dedicate at least a decade of your time to this at the forefront. 2, acknowledge that even if you do everything perfectly for a decade, you still may not turn pro. 3, when I say be dedicated to this for a decade, I don't mean just during prep and then fuck off during off season. I mean be dedicated year round, period. Always. Vacation once a year, that's fine. But even on vacation, don't be a complete piece of shit with your food. Take time off from training sometimes. You do need to recover. Don't train every single day thinking it's going to get you there faster. It's not. It will get you there slower. It will prevent you from getting there. In fact, take a week off every now and then. That's not going to hurt you. That will also most likely help you tremendously every now and then. Not every other week, obviously. And then make sure that you love this to the degree that when you're in prep and you're in the hardest parts of prep, that you're not thinking, fuck, man, I'm sacrificing so much for this. Because if you think you're sacrificing, then you're not going to make it. You're not going to be good. It's just not going to happen for you. So anyway, if you are going to push yourself to that degree and do all the things that are actually necessary to get you there, I commend you. I was one of those people. I pushed myself to the highest degree possible. I did everything in my power to try to get there. And I was one of those people that still didn't. And I do not regret that. Again, I do regret some of the stuff that I did that made it impossible for me to get there later in my career. But that's why I'm doing these videos, is to help you not have those same regrets. So that's all I got. If anyone has any questions, feel free to just shoot me a DM or whatever. And if you have inquiries about coaching, shoot me a DM as well, or click the link in my bio. You can book a call there and we'll discuss it. So For all of you that showed up on the live, thank you very much. And for anybody who's watching as I eventually post this to like YouTube and stuff, thank you for watching as well. Hold on, I got one more. Let's see. You're funny, dude. Love your content. Thanks. Everything resonates with me. Love the sport/grind. Hell yeah. I try to be funny, and it's funny because a lot of times I'm not trying to be funny. I'm just being me, and sometimes I start speaking with conviction, and it always comes off as funny. I think the funniest version of myself is when I'm really mad about something, and I'm fully aware of it. So, like, sometimes I'll get really fucking pissed and show it outwardly, and the people around me will just start dying laughing. They have one of two reactions. They're either terrified or they're laughing at my frustration, and I never get upset with them for laughing at my frustration because I'm aware it's pretty funny. Anyway, that's all I got. Thank you guys for coming by, etc. Have a good day.